you think I'm spooky?
Be afraid. Be very afraid. What have you done to his eyes?
Good evening, and welcome to Soft and Spooky. For today's video, I'm going to be diving into the 2007 film Planet Terror by Robert Rodriguez. If you're interested in possibly seeing this movie but just wanted to know my thoughts, I actually already did a spoiler-free review video that I'm going to link up above here. In today's video, I'm basically going to be going through the entire movie and adding in my thoughts, some jokes, and some fun facts about the film. So without further ado, let's sink our teeth in. The first little bit of action that we get is on this military base where it kind of seems like a shady deal is going down. This here is Abby, and he just wants to ball with his bros.
Hey, why don't you go back inside, man? I'm just trying to ball with my bros.
Since he doesn't get what he wants, he decides to cut off their balls. And you know, we all like to have our little hobbies, so he likes to keep them in a jar.
Hello there. Who's that big man there?
I'm a little ashamed to admit that I did not recognize Bruce Willis here until he took his mask off. But basically, he's a part of the military that I think Abby was supplying these gas canisters for them, and they didn't get like the shipment that they needed. And so they overtake Abby, and Abby's just like, whatever, man, I'm gonna shoot the canister open and release the gas into the air. And we do get our first glimpse of what the effect of this gas is, or like the chemical is, because you see these like little pustules just like pulsating on Bruce Willis's face.
Smash.
Susie.
Wait, what was the game? Smash or pass?
Yeah, here is where I did begin to regret eating fettuccine alfredo while watching this.
Take your drink. Okay, you okay?
The next shot, I really like it for some reason. I mean, it's probably because I'm a huge fan of like neon signs and neon lights, but I love how cool this establishing shot is with the bone shack in the foreground. It looks really cool. So we have arrived at JT's Bone Shack as Tammy is coming up with her busted car that's smoking. We also get introduced to, obviously, my favorite character, JT, who owns this barbecue joint called the Bone Shack. Also at the Bone Shack is Cherry, who is our lead protagonist. So she just quit her... Oh, my tummy growling. She just quit her job as a go-go dancer, and in her own words, she is looking for a dramatic change in her life. So after Tammy leaves, we get our other lead protagonist, Ray, who pulls up in his truck. As soon as I saw him, I was like, oh my gosh, that's Carla's brother from Scrubs.
Hombre, tú me tienes harto.
I'm sorry, but I can't understand you.
Yeah, well, that talking slower and louder thing is not as helpful as you might think.
Oh, I love the music change when Ray realizes that Cherry is there. You can like really sense that they had a past. Ray calls Cherry Palomita, which I did look up, and in Spanish it means little dove or little pigeon. I wish somebody would call me Little Pigeon. A cute little detail that I noticed in later shots is you can actually see Cherry wearing a necklace with a dove on it. Also, the jacket is somewhat important for later, so essentially it was Ray's jacket. She took it when she left him, and he searched for it for 2 weeks. Nevertheless, Cherry needs a ride, and Ray agrees to give her one. In more ways than one, yow!
Yo, the Piazza was like, what? And I was like, later on.
The other main characters that we'll be following are the Block Docs. We have Dr. Dakota Block, her husband, Dr. Bill Block, and their little Danny Torrance-looking son, Tony.
I'm going to eat your brains and gain your knowledge.
Why does that have the same cadence as the bones are their money from I Think You Should Leave?
The bones are their money.
Also, like, okay, this is definitely me reading way too much into this, but it's interesting that the child actor, Rebel Rodriguez, he plays Tony, And he looks like Danny Torrance here. And if you think back to The Shining, the little boy, or like the little man that lives in Danny's mouth, that's like his Shining, is called Tony.
Is Tony one of your animals? No, he's a little boy that lives in my mouth.
Kind of weird. So right off the bat, you can tell that Dakota is making these like sneaky little text plans with her lover to escape from her husband. Dr. Bill does notice, but he holds his tongue as they go into work together. Dr. Bill Block's first patient when they get to the hospital is this guy with a gnarly bite on his arm. But what's weird about it is that it doesn't bleed, and it also shows like advanced stages of gangrene and stuff. So Dr. Bill is inspecting this patient's arm along with another doctor who I am convinced could be Andy Richter's brother. As you've probably noticed from the clips so far, this film is really interestingly color graded. It's very kind of like greenish and high contrast. And then you also get these like grains and warping to the film, and it is very interesting. Like they're really trying to emulate that sort of B, low budget Grindhouse film for a movie that was made in 2007. There's also some really cool editing choices, like when Dr. Bill is inspecting the patient's arm, the Andy Richter doctor is showing him pictures of this patient that had like an infected
Penis.
which I will definitely spare you the sight of because I wish I could. It's like this advanced like infection on the guy's nether regions, and then the patient, the guy with the arm wound, asks what happened to him, what did they do? And then both Dr. Bill and the Andy Richter doctor both make this synchronized chop, and it kind of like is added in with a sound effect, and I thought it was a really cool choice.
How'd you treat it?
The same effect happens later on when Ray is in his truck too.
So what do you do?
Just pick him off. Just like this.
This film also just really packs a punch with its gross out effects, because as the doctors are inspecting the patient, they realize that he has an abscessed tongue.
Oh, Jesus.
If a doctor ever makes that noise when I'm showing them something, I'm gonna consider myself dead. Bill even squishes the tongue for some reason, and it's like a burster right onto his glasses. The special effects makeup for this film was designed by Greg Nicotero, who is known for The Walking Dead, The Mist, Sin City, The Faculty, Scream, just like so many horror movies. So the special effects makeup was executed for this film by K&B Effects Group, who was founded by Greg Nicotero and Howard Berger. I love the special effects for this movie. I think that they are really realistic and impressive, and it's also over-the-top, ridiculous, gross-out fun. So yeah, I love it so much. So after the disgusting abscessed tongue is discovered, Dakota is summoned for her specialty. Now, is a leg holster for needles unhygienic? Probably. But does it look hot and badass? Absolutely. I think this is one of Dakota's like best scenes in the movie because it's essentially like a monologue, but she shows off what each of her color-coded needles do. The yellow friend takes the sting off, the blue friend you'll barely feel, and the red friend, you'll never see me again. How funny would it have been if we just never saw her in the film after that? So yeah, the general consensus that the doctors come to is that that patient needs to have their arm amputated to prevent the further spreading. We then check back in on Fergie's character, where she is stuck by the side of the road again because that car is still giving her problems. So she starts to walk down the road and sees if she can get some help. But the zombies decide to snatch her off the road, and we do get a really fun moment. I don't think I can show it on YouTube, but basically you just see like her organs flying out, like here's a kidney, here's her intestines, and it's sort of still like backlit, so you don't see the full dimension of everything, but I thought it was super fun. Real big bummer about Tammy's death, though, is, spoiler alert, that was actually Dakota's lover that she was going to run away with. The same zombies that grab Tammy dart in front of Ray's truck as they're driving along, and he ends up flipping his car over because he tried to swerve out of the way. The irony of the situation is the fact that he was just lecturing Cherry about how with deer you shouldn't swerve to avoid them, you should just hit them head on because it's you or them. Yeah, we do get a really nice like fake out moment too, where after the car crashes, just like the expression on Cherry's face, I thought she was dead.
Jerry.
I thought you said if you saw a deer, you shouldn't swerve.
Suddenly, in the truck, Cherry also gets snatched by the zombies, and she gets the dramatic change, and they rip her right leg off. So here is where the stories actually start to connect, because Cherry is rushed to the hospital that the block doctors work at. We also are introduced to Sheriff Haig, who is reprimanding Ray for even having a rifle, because it seems like he got in trouble at some point. Sheriff Haig also seems suspicious in Ray bringing in this wounded woman, and he says a ridiculous line.
Now you've got a gal in your wrecked truck with a missing leg? A missing leg that's now missing?
The poison for Cusco. The poison chosen specially to kill Cusco. Cusco's poison.
Another patient brought in that was dead on arrival is Tammy, and when Bill sees it, you see that he starts to connect the dots.
I've connected the two dots.
You didn't connect shit, but
I've connected them.
Honestly, I think this might be one of the more uncomfortable scenes in the film because Josh Brolin is absolutely terrifying as Dr. Bill Block. He notifies Dakota, and as soon as she sees Tammy, she is shook, and so she runs away to like another office. He follows her in there, and there's actually a really cool split diopter shot where both the foreground and the background are in focus, and so you see Dr. Bill in the back and then a close-up of Dakota, and just looked really nice. It's honestly just so unsettling how initially he's embracing her to comfort her, and then you see this very subtle change in his demeanor, and it suddenly becomes very oppressive and threatening. The tension continues to build as he snatches the needles out of her pocket and begins to stab her hands, effectively to paralyze them so he can take her phone. And yeah. We do get a little bit of an ease in tension when the paramedic interrupts Bill, and just like the delivery of Bill here, I don't know, I found it kind of funny.
What?
It's like he just got asked to like come empty the dishwasher or something. Back with Ray, we are taken to the police station by Sheriff Haig, and I was delightfully surprised to find out that Michael Parks plays Earl McGraw in this movie. He's just in the station for a few minutes because he has to go back home to his sick wife, and he interacts with Ray a little bit, and just this small conversation he has with Ray, I really admire Michael Parks' acting.
You don't smoke, do you, Ray? That's probably good.
He just seems so completely genuine and natural, and it just feels very much based in reality. Also, did you know that he's a musician? I had no idea.
To that place, I rode my pony through the draw, where the oak and the blackjack trees.
In this scene, we also find out that JT is actually the sheriff's brother, and he desperately wants to know JT's barbecue recipe. So JT calls in, of course, on a hot dog phone. How cute is that? I kind of want one. But he calls in requesting some help because he doesn't know that they're zombies, but they're people kind of loitering around his bone shack. I have to take a moment to just share my appreciation on how these stories are interwoven without feeling too convoluted. Like, it very much seems based in reality. The idea of this small town in Texas and everybody knows each other or somehow connected in some way. Another surprise cast member, we have another deputy coming in that is played by Tom Savini, the legendary special effects makeup artist. This is another acting credit that he's earned in collaboration with Rodriguez, and he plays the kind of bumbling and stupid deputy Tolo. But yeah, he comes in screaming about how somebody that he was taking into custody ended up biting off his ring finger. So the rest of the police department goes outside to find the perp, and one of the officers actually finds his wedding ring. We get a nice buildup of Tolo reaching for the ring, and you just know that something is about to go down. Oh, I love Savini's facial expressions here. It's just so over the top and campy, and I love it. After seeing this zombie outbreak and killing a few zombies, Ray decides to head back to the hospital to grab Cherry, and the police officer, or the sheriff, Haig, decides to tag along with him. Back at the hospital, Dr. Bill Block and the Andy Richter doctor are discussing the situation that is unfolding, and they both decide, yeah, they're gonna bail.
When life gives you lemons, just say fuck the lemons and bail.
As Bill is making his way to go get Dakota, he is cornered by that original arm bite guy. So that patient has been fully infected and was just going to town on the doctor with the saw that was originally gonna saw off his arm. And he starts to approach Dr. Bill. And I think there was actually a really nice subversion of the expectation, because you see him approaching him, you think he's going to get all sawed up and it's going to be a bloodbath. But the saw actually unplugs because he got too far from it. So the patient decides to just like grab one of his pustules and just smear it all down Dr. Bill's face and mouth. It's all a lost cause for Bill anyway, because Dakota managed to jump out the window of the closet that she was trapped in. I have to hype up Marley Shelton here, because the sequence of her trying to open the car door with her hands paralyzed is just a perfect masterpiece of like horror and hilarity. So her hands are paralyzed and she's trying to basically slide her hand in the space between the car door and the door handle, and then she uses her foot to press the button to open up the door. Super funny and like honestly kind of resourceful. But then she slips, and as she falls, she just like absolutely crushes her hand in the handle, and oh, I haven't experienced that visceral of a reaction since like honestly, either Gerald's Game or Dr. Sleep with the hand gore. Well, I mean, it's not even gory, but it's just like, ooh, I felt that in my body. Adding insult to injury, she also uses her mouth, or like her teeth, to get her keys in the ignition, and she chips her tooth. Oh, it makes my teeth feel hollow. So around the time that Dakota is leaving is actually when Ray and the cops arrive at the hospital. So he ends up finding Cherry, and she's uninfected, but she does reveal that her right leg was amputated. So Ray is trying to get Cherry to escape with him, and she obviously can't walk yet. So he grabs a leg, he breaks a leg off of a table and makes that Cherry's new leg. Returning back to Dakota's storyline, she has already picked up Tony from some very angry babysitters, and she's now pulled up in front of a house and she's honking her horn, but nobody's coming out. So she decides to approach the house, and she gives Tony a gun to protect himself and tells him to basically shoot anyone that doesn't look like her. As she's leaving the car, she says,
"And be careful where you point that thing. You'll blow your own face off."
And, yeah, dude, the movie did the thing, and, the little boy shot himself. I was just, like, totally surprised that they actually committed to that. Apparently, Robert Rodriguez actually had a really hard time, like, justifying putting a child actor in that position, so he chose to cast his own son, Rebel, instead. I'm not sure how that actually is better for like mentally dealing with that, but okay. We do actually find out that the house that she was in front of was Earl McGraw's, which is actually her dad, and so they're gonna be making their way to the Bone Shack. So while everybody is gearing up to kind of fight these hordes of zombies, Cherry and Ray are in JT's bedroom just kind of having a private discussion. Again, Ray brings up the jacket that Cherry is wearing, and we find out why he searched for that for 2 weeks. In the jacket pocket, Ray actually had a ring for Cherry that was inscribed with the words, "Two against the world." So she sees the ring, and they end up getting back together, and let's just say it's called a Bone Shack for 2 reasons now. So next is actually, I think, a really hilarious little editing joke where in the middle of the love scene between Ray and Cherry, you see the film kind of like warping, and then interspliced it says, "Footage missing." And then we cut to... It's basically like a screw you to the audience. We cut to JT's place is completely engulfed in flames, and Sheriff Haig was shot by Deputy Tolo on accident. Also, within that missing footage, we have some sort of reconciliation between Ray and Sheriff Haig, where I guess Ray revealed what his past was, and now the sheriff suddenly respects him. So Ray needs some guns to go fight these zombies, and initially Deputy Tolo rejects him or objects to it, and then the sheriff overrides and they give him guns. And this is legitimately my favorite part of the movie. I was cracking up at this.
That boy's got the devil in him.
I've been saying that boy's got the devil in him, like, ever since I've seen this movie. It pops in my head so much. I love it. So basically, Ray needs someone to get to his truck. I kind of don't really remember why. He asked Cherry's former boss to go out there, insisting that, like, he never misses a shot. But the Go-Go Club owner is a little scaredy cat, and he says no. So Cherry actually volunteers to go get the truck, and I love how badass the women in this movie are and how silly the men are. Like, even our lead protagonist, he leads the entourage in a little tiny pocket bike.
That's a nice motorcycle.
So the crew's making its way downtown, and then they actually come upon sort of a blockage on a bridge of a whole bunch of zombies. But the zombies are like quickly mowed down by a bunch of the military people from the beginning of the movie. So all the survivors are captured and taken to the old military base, and we actually are reunited with the ball man himself, Abby. Oh, and hey look, it's Quentin Tarantino. But like, pustules and stuff. So we learn the origin of the virus from Abby, and basically how he's a scientist that was working on trying to find an antidote to it.
They're stealing biochemical weapons.
DC-2,
Also known as Project Terror. Designed to take out an entire populace in a controlled, landlocked area.
Unfortunately, as they're being held there, JT tries to be a hero and attack one of the guards, but he ends up getting shot, and I am immediately inconsolable. The one bright side, though, is that we do get to see some pretty fancy handiwork. When Ray is like handing back his gun to one of the guards, he ends up like flipping it, and so it shoots the guard. So that was kind of cool. So since that guard is killed, Ray and Abby escape and end up finding Bruce Willis's character. Bruce Willis's character begins to tell them the sort of backstory to like how this virus initially got discovered, and oh my gosh, Abby really is obsessed with balls.
Walking around with our dicks in our hands, our balls in our throats, looking for America's most wanted. Balls.
Essentially, Bruce Willis's character, Muldoon, was out there looking for Bin Laden. They ended up killing him, and then they got exposed to the virus DC-2, and now they kind of have to like microdose themselves in order to not, you know, fester with the pustules and stuff. Personally, I kind of feel like I didn't really need the backstory. Like, they could have kept this whole outbreak thing, I don't know, they could have kept it vague, kind of like in The Mist, where it's like, military conspiracy, blah, 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 top secret, blah, blah. Okay, I'm good. That's all I need. And I'm not sure why, because, like, usually I do like a backstory, but it sort of seems like for apocalypse or zombie movies, I don't really need all of it. But yeah, so he kind of has like an honorable death in a sense, and Muldoon allows himself to like go without the gas too long, and he just like explodes. Meanwhile, we find out that Cherry and Dakota have kind of been taken to this separate area by Quentin Tarantino's character and some other guard. And we find out that he's not only gross physically with all the pustules, but he's also a pustule of a human being. He attempts to assault Cherry, and like the grossest, like he stops putting the gas on, and he's getting all like gross and melty, and just things are falling off of him.
Our pets' heads are falling off!
And yeah, it's just gross. But she actually manages to like kick him in the face. It breaks the wooden leg, and then she just stakes him right in the eye with her wooden leg. We also get a nice little assist with Dakota, and she has a little gun thing that shoots her needles.
I want that.
And now Dakota actually has feeling back in her hands, which I do have a little bit of a nitpick about, just because, yes, she was like paralyzed from the needles, but wouldn't she still sustain that injury that happened with the car door? Like, wouldn't she still have the broken hand? I don't know. So I thought that was kind of like inconsistent, but whatever. So anyway, now that Cherry's makeshift leg is stuck in Quentin Tarantino's eye, we also have Ray and Abby come to get them, and Ray actually made a fixture for her leg that is a gun, and it is like the iconic imagery of this film. It's the cover of it, so it's so cool. So all of the survivors reconvene, and they basically make plans to escape on the remaining helicopters off of the base. Sadly, since JT and Sheriff Haig both have gun injuries, they decide to stay back on the base, and I am distraught.
Brother's a good man, JT. Best in Texas.
We do get a nice kind of full circle conclusion to the brothers' story, and I think it's actually pretty nice.
Share the recipe. We'll share the rent.
You just remember, you got to take this recipe to your grand.
I think I can goddamn guarantee that.
So basically, the survivors are trying to figure out how to get to the helicopters around this wall without, like, getting killed. And we get a really funny moment that I wish I could show on YouTube, or at least I can't show it unblurred. But basically, Abby leads the group, and he like peeks around this one corner, and just immediately his head gets blown off. And I love Cherry's line here.
I don't suppose there are any other biochemical engineers around?
So the next best option is Cherry decides to storm over the wall, and oh my gosh, this is such a fantastic scene. So basically there's like gasoline on the ground, which Cherry shoots her gun leg into to propel herself over the wall, and then she like sits on the ground spinning around just like shooting a bunch of the guys. It's, come on. The shot of her flying over the wall is like so graceful and badass at the same time. And she even, after like killing everybody, picks up some sunglasses and is like staring at the explosions. It's just so cool. Unfortunately, since she is posing there in front of the explosions, she doesn't realize that there's a zombie coming up behind her. But thankfully, Ray comes up, shoots it, and in the process, he gets shot at the same time. as he's dying, honestly, Rose McGowan gives a really emotional performance here, and she repeats the mantra that they shared together of 2 against the world. Ray then replies,
It will be. I promise. I never miss.
And y'all, it took me too long to realize what he meant here. If you don't know yet, you'll find out very soon. So all of the survivors manage to get on the helicopter and they make it to Mexico, which was Ray's original idea to fight off the zombies. And yeah, you see basically they created a community of survivors of the immune, and Cherry got a pretty dope upgrade to her gun leg. Also, I love the shot of Dakota just kind of like standing there at guard looking badass as usual, and then like everybody's just kind of hanging out on the beach. It's a fun shot. I also think the ending of this movie is another pretty good example of subversion of the expectation, just because I kind of expected them to find a cure to this disease and everything basically return back to normal, but ultimately the scientist that was working on it died, and now it's just the immune that are fighting for the planet. And here we find out that Ray did not miss, and Cherry has a baby.
It's like you said it would be. 2 against the world, baby. 2 against the world.
And that is Planet Terror. So yeah, as you could probably tell, I really enjoyed this movie. I even went in not even knowing that it was a horror movie, so that was a nice unexpected surprise. But I feel like this movie surprised me in a lot of refreshing ways, and the fact that yes, it's disgusting, yes, it's crass, but it never takes away women's power, even when it takes away limbs. And I don't know. I thought this movie was really surprisingly good. Alright, so that is it for this video. Definitely let me know in the comments below if you've seen this, what you think about it, or if you watched it vicariously through me. Definitely let me know in the comments below. Also, please leave this video a thumbs up so it helps me in the algorithm, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I was so excited to make this, so I hope you enjoyed it too. And with that, I will see you guys in the next one. Don't forget to stay soft and spooky. Bye!